Good morning, good morning. I'm up taking my walk. I get up at like 5 o'clock, but lately, no matter what time I go to bed, it's been like 4:30 instead. So I get up anyway and keep going. The time is moving rather quickly. I want to talk about what I've been, like messages I've been receiving for 2022, as we're really close right now. But it's been going on for a month, and I semi-touched on it in one of the last videos that I did, where I talked about the fact that elders are leaving. We can expect in 2022 for there to be bigger numbers on the death toll, but among those numbers will be a lot of significant elders, specifically spiritual leaders and thought leaders of a previous generation. And what I mean by that is that like each generation kind of has a way of thinking. Like I talked before about groupthink, and there's a such thing as like a collective groupthink. And so the thought leaders of what was like the 60s, the 70s, and some of the 80s are going to be exiting this realm. Same thing with spiritual teachers. What's been being taught obviously is shifting, and more esotericism, more mysticism, more of what used to be considered occult information is becoming common knowledge as we shift into the Aquarian age. And so those old thought leaders are literally becoming history and will be known for how they shaped the past in the future. And right now, you will see children from the early 2000s rising up and taking positions that they don't have experience for, but it's like divinely orchestrated. They'll be taking these positions and not following the ways of those that came before them with respect, but doing things differently in order to preserve, I want to say, the human race. I'm not sure why I'm picking up that word, that phrase, but in order to preserve the human race, they're not going to do things the same. And it's going to seem even more chaotic, but there's a plan. You know how they say, like, when you have a great task to do, that sometimes it's going to look worse before it gets better? It's like that. But we have to trust in divine plan and know that everything will work together in the end. So yeah, it's gonna be heartbreaking. Even I think last week, one of the great spiritual teachers, Maladoma Some, he passed, I think last week. So it's happening, it's real, and you can expect more and more of that. when it comes to human deaths, this whole COVID and its whatever viruses that go along with it will continue for the next year. It's going to continue, the mass, the vaccinations, all of that. But what will begin to take larger precedence is what I call the rising of the earth. We're going to see natural disasters, and some of them are larger than life. And I'm talking larger than what we just saw in Kentucky. Things that what I'm seeing is that they're going to be so back to back that we don't have time to recover. We don't have time to help one another. That it's just going to be back to back. Unfortunately, I feel more tropical storms in the Caribbean. I'm not going to say where. And definitely more disaster hitting the Midwest and over here on the East Coast as well. And I very clearly see water as being part of the disaster in certain areas. But this is why I kind of put the videos in this order about prayer, because you can protect yourself with prayer. You can protect your loved ones with prayer. You can protect your city, your home, all of those kinds of stuff, when all the things you care about can be protected with your prayers. And so if you happen to be in one of these areas, think positively. Even if your positive is, I will survive. And the other thing, and I need to make a side video about that, is aside from those like mass destructive, because it's not just going to be here in the U.S., it'll also be outside the U.S. disasters happening as well. But the other thing right here on U.S. soil is going to be drugs. And this is why I have to make a video, because people seem to think that some drugs are coming from the earth and they're amazing and they do this and they do that. When I say drugs, I mean drugs. Anything that is altered from its original state and therefore undergoing a chemical process. All of that is going to be utilized within the next year to drop our numbers. And I'm just warning that it's going to look like that it is as if it's like crack or heroin or whatever people be using, meth or something. It's going to look like it's those harder street drugs that have people on the street. It's going to look like that. Like as if that's where all of the, what do you call it? As if that's where all of the, bad batches are, in a sense, where people are going to be like, oh, somebody had bad drugs, somebody had bad drugs. It's going to start taking out numbers. And you may or may not see more celebrity faces also going out for the same reason. But definitely, it's going to be a weapon for 2022 to drop out mass numbers. So if you dibble and dabble, clean up and put those that you love that dibble and dabble or are totally strung out, do your best to wrap them in your prayers, because at the end of the day, you can't make someone clean up. It's their decision. But that's a thing in its own, because of the energy that goes along with drugs. And that's why I said I'll do a separate video. But yeah, anything that you ain't on yourself can be utilized as a weapon. And that's going to take quite a few people out. And on the bright side of things, there is going to be a merging of the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And that's for not just twin flames, because it doesn't matter how many times I say it, people don't really know, because there's so much misinformation at this point. But there are people who are actual twin flames, and then there's people who simply have contracted divine partnership, and you're going to see some uniting there. There will definitely be a shift in masculinity, and kind of like a redefinition of what it means to be masculine. That's going to be a thing. And the men will start getting in their place, which naturally will cause women to shift right behind them, because that's what we do. We balance each other. There's other things I want to say, but I feel like it can be mistaken. But there's been like an agenda in regards to like homosexuality and transgender, all that stuff that's been going on for the past few years, where people are like hypersensitive and everybody's getting canceled, the whole cancel culture thing and all of that, and people looking in records from 1992 and saying that people said stuff. All of that stuff is going to fall back. All of the, I'm not going to say the effect of social media, but let's just say with a lot of the disasters and stuff happening, that is going to shift the collective, and people will begin to remember what it was like to be human, and that creates shift. And when I say human, it's like right now people are like a virtual attack dog in groups, you know. Like I call them virtual wolves, the way they attack every little thing that isn't a part of their group think. That's going to start losing its power, and we will see a shift towards truth, and a shift towards love, and a shift towards enlightenment. Not like an overwhelming shift, just kind of like a little pivot in that direction. I mean, we're quite far gone, so you can't expect a whole lot. But you'll see the collective start to pivot and shift, and you'll see an expression of compassion for people as a whole, and not just like the ego in which you identify with and things like that. But that's all I want to say right now about 2022 and the messages that have been given. Please do your best with it. Do your best with what you know, and the best that you can with what you have. And do your best to keep your vibrations high I wish peace and blessings and abundance on everyone watching this video. Y'all take care.